Army Rangers smoked some Crips in 1989. When the military gets involved, it's going to be interesting.
Saturday, September 23rd, 1989. An Army Ranger who had just purchased a home on one of Tacoma, Washington's most gang-infested streets quickly became a witness to various illegal activity.
Of course it's Washington. Why does it make sense that it's Washington, though?
Happening out front of his home. He wasn't shy of confronting it or notifying the authorities, and soon after, he became the target of one of the most notorious street gangs Washington State has ever seen. And after shaking up the hornet's nest one too many times, his home was ambushed by the Hilltop Crips gang.
I have a buddy that lives in a nondescript state, is what I'm going to say. And like every single night, he has to like watch his ring cam that looks across the street. And like every single night, he's having to call the cops because there's either someone tweaking over there, there's just some activities going on. I know one of the other nights, like his neighbor left his garage open and people were trying to go through and pilfer the garage. And I mean, it's the other buddy he actually had to go out, and I think he called the cops, and he had to, I'm not going to say what state it is. He had to go out, and this dude was just absolutely, something was going on with him. And he like ended up stripping off his clothes and left the duffel bag across the street. And I think he pulled, I can't remember if he brandished a knife or not. And then he just kind of ran to where my buddy couldn't see him, like somewhere off in between the buildings. And my buddy's just kind of like, yeah, I'm not awake enough for this. And I guess in the morning at some point the duffel bag was gone. So whether the police picked it up or this guy that is just on some other astral plane or whatever. But why I bring this up is it's more common than I realized. It's wild.
But not before he invited 15 of his Ranger buddies over.
Oh no.
300 rounds, and 10 minutes later, the Crips were fighting for their lives.
Look, I know we may joke about the Army. I ain't fucking with the Army. I ain't fucking with the Rangers, especially.
In 1989, the neighborhood of Ash Street in Tacoma, Washington was an open-air drug market. There were several hotspots, and almost every house on the block was an active and thriving trap house. These gang infestations in the 1980s, born from the crack epidemic, flooded the streets and created an economic downturn that defined the decade. You might remember...
Well, because we have, what is it? Ketamine's the big one right now, right? I wonder how the ketamine trade has shaped this, because if this was in response to crack... I'm very curious how the modern ketamine, not that, you know, I'm in any business way to analyze that, right? Not that I have access to any of that information. And I would argue it's probably not even legal, allegedly, right? I look at trends like this and I wonder just because I'm curious.
Remember President Ronald Reagan declaring the war on drugs, or his first lady who was just like, just say no, oh my God. That was this time. Tacoma was Washington State's ground zero of gang activity. And by the summer of 1989, it had grown blatant, middle of the day type shit. Like selling crack to the ice cream man type shit. And this was all fueled by an influx of gang members moving in from California. Tacoma police had experienced nothing like it before and were really struggling to get it under control. Oftentimes not even knowing how to respond to it. Ash Street neighbors consistently called police and called 911 repeatedly and got nowhere. The typical response from police at the time was very mild. Community-oriented policing was a new thing, such as taking bullshit calls and pretending like it's not bullshit.
Yes, ma'am. I know you can't sleep when the dogs are barking.
But community policing was still viewed with suspicion by veteran cops who came up in the 60s and preferred the old ways, like smacking people in the head with their portable radios. At the time, Tacoma Police Chief Ray Fatelin pushed these new community policing programs so far that the Hilltop Crip Gang rose to power.
When the OGs from Woodwood like HTC, when we mounted up in the streets 200 deep, in the park rangers had a shootout with cats from Ash. When the Ashes connected with them Hilltop niggas, had a shootout and chased out some Cali niggas.
Staff Sergeant Will.
I really can't speak on the background of Crips. Like, I'm probably more familiar with, just through study, right? I'm probably a little more familiar with the upbringing of the Yakuza and how they've evolved versus the Bloods, the Crips, anyone like that. I don't have enough understanding of what they're rooted in, where they came from. So I don't really have any commentary on that.
William Folk of the 2nd Ranger Battalion 75th Ranger Regiment purchased his home on Ash Street in hopes that the neighborhood would soon turn around.
Yeah.
To protect that investment, he was determined to help push the drugs and gangs out by any means necessary.
Oh, I assume it's a long story.
Which may seem crazy to most people, but Staff Sergeant Folk was not most people.
Yeah.
He was an elite operator
Yeah.
who at a moment's notice could hit hard and smash fucking everything.
Wow.
You know, Ranger shit. But violence was the last thing the Staff Sergeant wanted.
Right.
And he remained optimistic. In the summer of 1989, Folk returned from a December deployment in Panama to find the neighborhood worse than when he left. Along with other neighbors who were honest, hardworking people, he formed a neighborhood group that pressed police, demanding action.
That's gotta be just really just an awful feeling to go on deployment and to come back. I mean, not in this case, right, where you have the entire neighborhood just being in a worse state, right? Like, I think that's one of the things that isn't really discussed in regards to military personnel, as they'll go on deployment or they'll have to move because of where they're going to be stationed, right? And when they come back home, I mean, it's going to be jarring in some cases to kind of readjust. And that's, you know, assuming that everything is in an okay state, unlike this, where there's clearly some stuff going down here. That's got to not be a fun feeling.
The neighbors started making signs, protesting, and taking pictures of the drug dealers.
Yeah.
Even as the tension on Ash Street rose, Chief Fatelin made a decision he would later regret. Hamstrung by budget constraints and desperately short on the patrol side, he shifted 4 of 6 officers away from the Hilltop Crime Management Team to launch a community policing pilot project. The neighbors on Ash Street reacted with dismay. Under fire from citizens and the city council, a local Tribune covered the controversy, noting efforts by Ash Street neighbors to monitor the drug activity themselves.
Well, and so here's the thing, is that it does give cops a bad rep. For example, I have a buddy, and subsequently the same buddy that was talking about earlier, who has to deal with the ring cam, is that there's a place where that ring cam is focused. Like, it's a place of business, and allegedly they're just dealing out of it. I mean, like, the owner of this shop has, I don't remember what it was. He's got a Lambo. I think it's a Lambo. It's something. And it just something doesn't make sense there. And allegedly, I mean, it's all known, but they don't really do anything to shut it down, it seems. So it's kind of hard to build up that rapport with the public, especially if you have, you know, pictures of people dealing. You have the locations where people are known dealing, you know, where people are going to hang out after business hours and just be on something, right? And, you know, people keep citing this is a problem, but nothing gets done. I mean, this seems like it's going to be a social issue that still is going on to this day. I'm a little out of my depth in trying to figure out what a solution here is, because I feel that this is a large conversation that a lot of people that have a lot more experience than I do are going to be able to answer. You know, I acknowledge my shortcomings. I acknowledge that I don't have all the answers. The Fat Electrician, I believe, was the Wake Island video, right? Where I have people criticizing me, and rightfully so. Like, Kip, you don't understand the decision-making process they went through. And you're right, I don't. I'm not military personnel. I'm not the brass that had to make decisions to, you know, effectively cut their losses. I'm not that. Hindsight is 2020, and I can speak from a civilian standpoint, but I can't speak authoritatively on military matters. So I'm not sure. It's I think that the call here is to let people that are far more qualified deal with that, because I think it is going to start bordering on politics.
After the News Tribune piece, drug traffic on Ash Street slowed, but only so much. Staff Sergeant Folk was used to seeing more than 100 cars pass through his block on any given day.
Wow.
And after the story appeared, it was down to 20 cars. Folk decided to install a video camera in his upstairs window to record the traffic. He organized a neighborhood barbecue as a show of public unity, set for 3 p.m. Saturday, September 23rd. He invited neighbors, friends, ranger buddies, and thought nothing more of it.
Oh, no.
The day of the barbecue, a group of Hilltop Crip gangbangers acknowledged Folk outside of his residence and gave him the gun finger. It came from a car full of Crips. Driving by his house, the index finger pointed, thumb up, a little flip of the hand, and the mouth words, boom, boom.
That's, yeah. Act of authority taken without formal prompting from another party. Yeah, that's legally. We get into gray area.
The gangster saw the video camera on Folk's house, and a few hours later they returned and threw rocks at it. Someone else took shots at the house and the video camera with a BB gun. Folk and a few ranger buddies then walked across the street to confront the out-of-shape, chain-smoking gangbangers who think they're hard. Folk told them to stop throwing things at his home and the neighbors' homes, to stop shooting BBs, and to instead turn their lives around and find better ways. The gangbangers warned him to take the camera out of his window. The gangbangers suggested the staff sergeant didn't know who he was dealing with. The staff sergeant suggested the gangbangers didn't know who they were dealing with.
No.
They then told him, "Your history, bitch," and told him they were going to burn his house down and light him up as soon as the sun goes down. Folk decided to walk.
He did give them the opportunity to not escalate this. In all fairness, he did give them the opportunity to just walk away. Well, this is about to get messy.
Walk away, and before he returned to his home, he overheard one of the Crips stating, "I'm gonna shoot that army son of a bitch." Folk then walked inside his house. He picked up his telephone, called some more of his ranger buddies from the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and invited them over for a barbecue, suggesting it wouldn't hurt if they came armed. With translation, bring your own bullets. Hey guys, let's have a barbecue. Okay, well, yeah, what are we gonna smoke? Just some Crips. Including the few rangers who were already at the barbecue and the rangers called, the total of rangers grew to 15. Folk told them to bring personal weapons and whatever else they had. They came armed to the teeth with handguns, shotguns, and rifles.
Jesus Christ!
Folk was armed with a Browning 9mm and a Colt Python 357 Magnum. Fucking Magnum. Who's the gangster now, bitch? Over
That's gonna kick real hard.
a couple beers, Folk pitched to his buddies a defensive operation of his home. Stake out locations and wait, no first moves. If police come, disarm immediately, cooperate, and assist. And all of his buddies joyfully agreed and were fucking down. They thought maybe nothing will happen, but if it does, zero tolerance for dudes shooting gats and smoking Swisher Sweets. As the sun went down, the Rangers dispersed into their defensive positions, alert and observant of any and all activity inside and outside the perimeter of the house.
This makes me wonder, just like, I'm always curious how, like, military personnel that have worked with each other, how they play games like SOCOM, how they play games like Battlefield, Call of Duty. I'd be very curious to see a squad of, like, you know, Marines, Ranger, Army, what have you, right? Of military personnel. I'd love to see them in a raid in Destiny. I would love to see them start tackling that, because that is some next level communication. Wow.
A few hours had passed as the Rangers held their positions. One Ranger observed a vehicle approaching in the distance at a slow rate of speed, at which point the vehicle shut off its headlights. Folk, with his Magnum in hand, returned the favor and turned out the lights in his house and in the yard. At 9:20 p.m., as the vehicle approached, someone within the vehicle fired a shot into the air.
Wow.
The house was now taking fire from the rear, where, according to police reports, small caliber automatic gunfire was heard. The Rangers opened a shit ton of fire, but so did the Hilltop Crips. One of the
Respawn games ruin tactics and trainings. Oh, I believe it. I 100%. Like, I'd be curious how they would handle, like, how Search and Destroy has no respawn, or even then, like Destiny, when you get into, say, you know, Vault of Glass gatekeepers, right? How it's a darkness zone, how you can't respawn. So, I mean, there's still some tactics that go on there. I'd be very curious. I would be willing to facilitate this interaction. It's just a matter of getting to that point.
The Rangers, William Edwards, was posted on the front porch. When the shooting started, he hit the ground as a bullet slammed into the wall beside him. He and other Rangers returned fire, seeing figures running amongst parked cars on the other side of the street. Ranger Russell Nolte, posted in the backyard, crawled forward as a shot hit the back of the house 3 feet over his head.
Wow.
Ranger Burr Settles was posted upstairs by the infamous controversial fucking video camera as a shot came through the window. The bullet grazed his head and he received multiple lacerations on his face from the shattered glass. Numerous muzzle flashes were now seen from the east. There were at least 16 shooters in 3 different locations.
Jeez. I mean, they surrounded that property. That's dirty. I mean, effective, don't get me wrong. Is that Is that kettling? Is that the concept of that? Or am I thinking of something a little different? No, that's effective.
The Rangers again returned fire, while outside the assailants took cover amongst the parked cars, shooting over their shoulders, ducking down, shooting blindly. You know, stupid shit like that, like gangsters do. At this time, a neighbor taking cover on her kitchen floor dialed 911.
Yeah.
And just like the famous Wild West shootout at the OK Corral, it was over in minutes. 10 minutes, to be exact. The first police car came down the middle of the street, cherries and berries on, with his siren blaring.
That's actually not... It's not a short firefight by any means, but it's also not prolonged. 10 minutes is a chunk of time.
The Rangers dropped their weapons, but as that first patrol car arrived on scene, one of the Hilltop Crip gang members popped a round off, sending the patrol car reversing out of the scene so quickly, smoke was seen coming from the rear tires.
Well, yeah,
Officers in the car
he just got shot
hearing
at.
50 to 60 shots in less than 1 minute. Shortly after, more cops pulled into the block, and the gangbangers ran.
This is nutty. That's gonna be a lot of police
The
paperwork.
unarmed staff sergeant walked out the back door to his driveway and the alley behind his house.
Yeah, so 10 minutes is forever in a firefight. Like, I do SCA, right? Which is not, we're not dealing with, a shootout, but, it is, for all intents and purposes, just mock combat, right? And it's rare for a fight to go above like 1 to 2 minutes because of how quick that can be, how quick somebody can pivot, a spear, how somebody can out leverage you with a longsword, how quick somebody can just, dart in with a rapier. I mean, like, you're going above 30 seconds. I mean, that's still a little long, but above 2 minutes, I mean, there's some stall tactic going on there. And when I say stall, I mean like somebody's got a defensive implement in and they're actually using it in a good capacity.
He felt someone behind and didn't fight. A hand shoved his head down and a voice ordered him to the ground. One gang member by the name of Frankie Strickland was cornered by a police canine, found to be in possession of 16 rounds of 9mm. He said he was holding them for a friend, but couldn't remember the friend's name. Like a fucking liar. He also said the same thing about the pistol he was carrying. It was for a friend. Another suspect was carrying copper-headed rounds for a gas gun. Once the situation was under control and the officers learned about the Rangers' defensive operation, the responding sergeant of the Tacoma Police Department wasn't too happy about it. He lectured Folk and the other Rangers for not calling the police for assistance until shots were fired.
I mean, so here's the thing about that is if the situation is already that hot and disinterest has already been shown as what the 4 out of 6 police personnel were assigned to other things, right? What do you want them to do? What do you want people to do when they're actively in a situation where they're going to be in danger? Like, so he hosted a barbecue right before he called his friends over, right? So there were 2 barbecues, or maybe it's anyways, right? But you get people that are going to show up and they're going to make the bang gesture and threaten you. Like, what are you expecting? And they didn't shoot first. He tried to talk them down. They didn't want to get talked down. So yeah, he's going to call his buddies and be like, I don't know what to do. Let's have a barbecue, bring your own beer, quote unquote. And, because I don't think this is going to go well. Yeah, put one of the videos in it.
Felt that the situation may have been avoided by calling 911 prior to the shooting getting started. Out of what was quite possibly a 35-man gunfight with over 300 rounds shot in the dark, no one was reported to be killed or injured.
Fair enough.
For 20 years, the official version of the shootout held that miraculously no one was hurt, but there were rumors injured gang members did not seek medical attention for obvious reasons, and some may have even been mortally wounded.
Yeah.
And according to Folk himself, during the firefight, one gang member rushed towards Folk's house. I guess he thought he was gonna John Wayne it. Folk remembered. One of the Rangers took aim and hit the gangster in the shoulder. The attacker staggered back and ran away. The moment goes unmentioned in police reports and witness accounts of the time. Unverified gossip holds that the wounded man was treated at a Seattle area hospital over an hour away from Tacoma.
Yeah. If that's the case, that would make sense.
Doug
some
Sutherland,
distance.
who was mayor at the time, pondered a declaration of a citywide version of martial law to combat the gang violence that immediately drew national attention. The city of Tacoma found the dollars to add more police officers to their department. Then Governor Booth Gardner even considered sending in the National Guard.
Can we just talk up for a second about how it's technically the U.S. Army that handled this situation and got the funding for the city? Can we just talk about that for a second? How it's not the situation itself that was able to get the funding. It's not the police themselves that was able to request the funding. It's the fact that the Army, specifically Rangers, had to get involved and get into a prolonged firefight, which all of them seemingly survived, to actually get the funding on it. That's wild.
To Ash Street. The Hilltop Crip gang member who was arrested and found in possession of the 9mm and the pistol, Frankie Strickland, was the only man charged in connection with the shootout. He was convicted of second-degree assault and was later sentenced to 22 months in prison.
Rangers
The
lead the way.
military officially considered the incident a matter of self-defense for the off-duty Rangers. On February 9th, 2010, Tacoma police and FBI launched a major crackdown on the Hilltop Crip gang and charged 32 members with up to 50 crimes, everything from theft to attempted murder and drug sales. A few years back, a Tacoma police officer said something about the shootout. He said it was the single most important incident in Tacoma that caused a change in police policies and practices.
Fair
Staff
enough.
Sergeant William Folk never moved away from Ash Street, and as he predicted, he was never promoted and left the Army in 1993. He still owns the property to this day. Hey guys, if you
Fair
enjoyed
enough.
this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more of these historical crime breakdowns in the works, and you don't want to miss them. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
So I actually didn't even know about this. I just saw this in my watch later feed, and the Fat Electrician videos have gone pretty well. So I thought, hey, let's give this a try. I thought this was really good. I think there's, you know, a little, there's definitely some opinionated pieces coming in here. However, I mean, I thought this was good. The editing was good. This was pretty high action. This was history that I didn't know about, specifically criminal history, but even also, you know, military history. I've never heard of this, and I live a state over. I'm in Idaho. I'm open of it. I don't want to be, but that's a conversation for another time, right? So, yeah, I mean, this was really good. This was really neat. You know, it's sad that the situation happens, and, you know, gangs and things of this sort are always going to be a thing, and there are people that are going to be able to address this on a political and societal level that I can't as a streamer. All I can do is just showcase historically, yeah, no, this happened. This was interesting. The Rangers probably weren't the right people to fuck with. Let's put it that way. And yeah, if you're looking for more content like this, it looks like Popo Medic has some. I'm surprised that he's under $1 million. I'll, you know, if we can do what if I can do what I can to help circulate it in what circles I'm in. I thought this was really good. I thought this was kind of neat, and hopefully you did too. But what are your thoughts? Please keep it, you know, please keep it appropriate in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one.